Okay, so hello everyone and welcome to what is going to be another episode of The Verdict. I am SpraynPray1000 and today we are going to talk about Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. So for those of you who don't know, Wolfenstein 2 is a sequel to Wolfenstein The New Order, which itself is, a very well done game. And if you remember, I don't actually know what episode it was on this verdict, if you excuse me. I'm very professional here. If we go back to, I think I did it in 2015. Wolfenstein The New Order, yeah, 2015. I played it almost a year late, whatever, so Wolfenstein The New Order was a game I really liked a lot. If you recall, I gave it a 90 because I thought it was a very well done game. It had a lot to it. It was definitely innovative in a lot of aspects. A lot of crazy stuff was going on, and I really appreciated the work and effort and time that was put into it. Now, here we are, a few years later, with the sequel. And what do I think about it? Well, for starters, I want to TLDR this. I kind of want to do that from here every so often. If you liked Wolfenstein, The Old Blood, and Wolfenstein The New Order, you're going to like Wolfenstein 2. And the reason why is because Wolfenstein 2 is more of the same thing. Now, that might sound like a bad thing, but I'm here to tell you that the craziness has been amped up, has been completely dialed up on Wolfenstein 2 as compared to its predecessor. And essentially, if you liked BJ the first time around, or the second time, you're going to like him the third time around. And I really enjoyed seeing him return for yet another outing. And I think that's kind of part of the reason why people play Wolfenstein a lot, is because BJ is an interesting character. So let's start off with the story. So there's going to be minor spoilers for The New Order, just because this is essentially a direct sequel. It takes off literally from the second The New Order ends. So at the end of The New Order, let me just say this. Spoiler alert, you've been warned. It's going to be a real short one, so I'll leave it vague too. At the end of The New Order, basically BJ is fucked up. The New Order ends off with sort of this ideal that the revolution will continue without him, and the opening moments of The Old Blood are here to remind us that a Wolfenstein game would be nothing without its title character. So BJ is, of course, main billing once again, and he's back, and that's kind of the interesting thing about it, is that BJ is a very well-defined character, and Brian Bloom really brings him to life. He really sort of goes out of his way to narrate this character as almost a tragic figure, and it is a little tragic. There's a lot of stuff that went wrong with BJ, and he's at least relatable in some aspects. He doesn't want to fight anymore. He kind of wants to hang it up and be done, but he knows his obligation to his duty is greater than what he wants, if you want to sort of quote Spock a little bit. He definitely sees that the needs of the many, which is slaughtering as many Nazis as possible, outweigh the needs of himself. And he's a tool to that end, but at the bare minimum, I still give him credit for what he does and how he does it. So the story picks up, he's all messed up from his events in the last game, and he's trying to move on, but unfortunately for him, he has ailing health issues stemming from the fact that stuff is going wrong. And so the game kind of progresses on a very somber tone for most of it. And BJ is trying to lead the remnants of the Kreisau Circle, which is the organization which opposes the Nazi world order, to victory to help fight back against them. At this point, the Nazis control essentially most of planet Earth. As we remember, they have invested interests in space and whatnot, and they've essentially established, as the last game, put it, a new world order. They own the entire world. There's not a single corner of the planet you could really go to that the Nazis don't have a little bit of their fingers in. So this game is about igniting a revolution. This is what they put as igniting the Second American Revolution, to throw back the Nazis and take back America for the people, by the people, all that rah-rah stuff, And it's not a bad premise. I mean, it's not, again, igniting a revolution, stuff like that. It's kind of typical for video games, but in the sense that Wolfenstein presents it, it's not a poor plot. It's not even handled poorly. It's just, the typical type of thing. But what really makes it shine are the colorful cast of people that you get introduced to. So Anya for instance, who's pregnant with BJ's children. You have the returning cast, such as Bombate. You have Max Haas, my personal favorite, Max Haas. You have the person that you saved in New Order. You make that choice again, and you can choose who you want. So you can choose differently if you want. You know, for my playthrough, I chose Fergus because I think that Fergus is a very interesting and unique character. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on with the story. I think that a lot of the stuff is a little bit phoned in, either dialogue-wise or just conceptually. But there's some interesting things. I was intrigued and had fun with the story up to the end. So it's not like it was a complete wash. I just find that this game might suffer from a little bit of sequelitis. It's not as fresh as the original game. It's not as unique of a twist that the original game was. And New Order was a very well done game in a lot of aspects, and I loved that game for it. There's a lot of crazy shit that went down in New Order and the Old Blood. And that, to me, is what's so crazy about it all, is that we now have this unique trilogy. I mean, technically, the 2009 Activision Wolfenstein game is canon to this game. Everywhere I look, it seems that it's canon, especially, you know, Wikipedia says it. It just seems that it's canon, but it doesn't really ever remark upon it so much. But yeah, I mean, there's some cool and interesting stuff going on. Some of this dialogue is in cutscenes are just kind of nonsensical diatribes about various things, you know, arguments that, in my opinion, don't really add to much. They don't really do a great job of characterizing some of the characters. But then, of course, you have a lot of cutscenes where BJ is talking to himself, or, well, not necessarily cutscenes, but parts of gameplay and stuff where BJ is talking to himself. You know, you're interacting with a lot of different characters, and it's interesting that they put sort of a home base in this game. There's replayable missions and stuff, so I'm kind of segueing into the gameplay a little bit. This game has a little bit more staying power, whereas the New Order is a linear, straightforward game. This game is a little more of well, I mean, it is linear in the sense that the story has missions to complete, but there's also various things to do afterwards. There's other side missions and stuff, and that's cool. I think the system could have been expanded a little more, instead of just reusing levels from missions you've already completed. It would be nice to see that, okay, well, we'll do something a little bit different with the game and actually, you know, show us igniting the American Revolution. You know, if this game lets you go to various places and start raising rebellion and raising trouble for the Nazis, then maybe that would be one thing. You know what I mean? Like, that would be pretty dope. Like, you're arming up for a big takeover, a la, like, you know, Assassin's Creed, sort of building up for the climax where you take over and you help these people do whatever. I think that would be more meaningful, in my opinion, that something like that happened. But the game is fine without it, so it's not too much of a detriment. Gameplay-wise, this gameplay is incredibly similar to New Order. The difference here is that there's, I believe, a few less weapons than New Order. They didn't bring back the sniper rifle this time. However, you can now dual-wield 2 different types of weapons in each hand, as opposed to being locked to dual-wielding the same weapon in both hands. So that's a little bit interesting if you're really into that. One of my biggest gripes about the gameplay of this game is that later on, and this is spoiler-free, later on you get the choice between 3 different gadgets that you can use to help BJ basically kill Nazis. So there's the Constrictor one, which sort of helps you sneak around in places. There's the Ramshackle one, which lets you knock people over, liquefy them maybe, or break through stuff, break like walls and grates and whatnot. And then there's the Battle Walker, which lets you basically double jump, lets you do a couple of other things. And you get the choice of one, but you can get them all eventually. Battle contraptions, I feel, actually add something to this game. However, I just feel like, 1, they don't really describe too well what each one will do, and 2, I'm kind of not a fan of this system too much. I feel like it definitely segs the gameplay a little bit in a way that I'm not a fan of, really. And I don't know, I feel like that, to me, felt like a kind of Deus Ex type of a deal. I know they want to innovate it a bit, but I feel like this game might have been too short for some of the stuff that they did in it. I feel like there's a lot of plot elements and a lot of plot ways that could have been done better to extend the length of the game. It feels to me like this game is absolutely going to have a sequel in which you can do a lot of this stuff. And there's a lot, and to that end, there's a lot of stuff in the plot that isn't exactly hemmed up by the time the game is over. But ultimately, I mean, the gameplay is fun. I'm just not too big of a fan of the various different systems. I feel like stuff that's as simple as slow time when you're going through your weapon wheel so you can pick out stuff would be infinitely more helpful. The weapon wheel, you know, you just change weapons in both hands. You have to toggle between menus and stuff, and you can't look around while doing it. It's very cumbersome. And after playing Doom 2016, I really have an appreciation for the fact that Doom understands that it's a fast-paced game where one mistake on your part can get you killed or severely put you in a bad position. So what they do is they at least give you the leniency of being able to slow down time and look through your weapons, carefully plan out your next move. Of course, you can't do it forever because, you know, you stop moving and then you become a target. But, I mean, it gives you those vital 2 to 3 to 4 seconds you need to carefully make sure each one of your inputs are read and everything is good. This game doesn't do that for some reason. They lock it behind one of the contraptions. I don't know why, especially given that Wolfenstein, in my opinion, is a way faster paced game, given the fact that you might need to dual wield 1 second, toggle off dual wield, do another thing, attach a contraption to your weapon, do things with the contraption, sprint. Enemies will murder you very quickly. Health packs are rare. It's very different than Doom, whereas Doom, you know, you run up to an enemy that's low on health, or maybe they don't have much health to begin with, you shoot them once or twice, you glory kill them, and basically they burst open like a piñata. They spill out health and ammo towards you all the time. You're low on ammo, you chainsaw, you're low on health, you rip them apart, you know, with your bare fists. It's a little bit more lenient in that sense, and Wolfenstein is not as lenient. And I'm not saying it should be, but stuff like that would help. I feel like stuff like being able to change weapons while sprinting should be almost fucking vital at this point. I don't know why it is when you use the weapon wheel and you sprint immediately after, it cancels what your weapon swap is. I've never heard of a game, and I've never known a game that will stop your weapon swap while sprinting. In fact, I know of plenty of games that have adopted that. So I don't know if this was in the last game. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm losing my mind. But in this game, they have it, and I think it's really a bad choice, in my opinion. Graphically and sound-wise, it's the same as its predecessor. I mean, it looks a bit better, which is nice and all. I mean, New Order wowed me because that was 2014, right? Oh my god, I gotta put on my glasses. Yeah, 2014, and then I played it in 2015. It wowed me because it looked so nice. But now that the console generation is, you know, dragged onward, and bear in mind, I played this on the PlayStation Basic. This is not a PS4 Pro review. I just want to make that very clear in case, you know, there is some eye-popping thing, whatever, I don't know. I do my reviews very basic. Nothing really ridiculous here. But overall, I like the game. Like, I know that I'm a little bit slapping around the nitpicks a bit, but there's a lot of nice things about this game. I think that the staying power is nicer, but a few things are a little weaker. And I think it just ultimately suffers from a bad case of sequel-itis, in the sense that it's not as fresh as the original was. The original New Order was an incredibly original game. It was inspiring to me that this game did something as bold as say, well, we know that BJ is going to fight Nazis, right? We all know that. It's understandable. But why don't we take the Nazis beyond World War II? Why don't we take them into a timeline where they've essentially won, where BJ wasn't there to stop them? And then that's kind of what Wolfenstein 2 is, and you know, it's a sequel to that. This game, I mean, the Second American Revolution is alright, but I feel like, I don't know, it's not as fresh to me as it was. I feel like the story kind of meanders on at some points, and while I like the characters, they're stuck in an arc where they just kind of have to do stuff very slowly. There's a lot of just shock value, I feel, in this game. And I don't want to obviously spoil some of it, but, you know, I feel like there's a lot, like, the craziness has been dialed up to 11 and beyond. And while that is cool, without the structure of a strong, firm, original, nice narrative like New Order, it just kind of feels like shock value for the sake of shock value. It feels like, oh, well, we put this crazy nudity in just to put it in for some reason. We don't know, whatever. And we put this crazy gore death scene in just because, you know, why not? And it works out at a few points in this game, but it also kind of ends up being very weird in a lot of other points. So to that end, Wolfenstein 2 is a great game. It's one of the more fun games I played this year, and it definitely has a place in my heart next to the, its brethren. But what would I give Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus? Well, I won't give it as high as its predecessor, just for recollection. I gave Wolfenstein the New Order a 90 out of 100 in episode 51, and I gave the Old Blood a little bit lower at an 85 out of 100 on episode 60. So this time around, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rate it a little bit higher than Old Blood, because it definitely did a lot more, but it also didn't really reach the potential I felt that Wolfenstein the New Order did. I'm going to give Wolfenstein 2 the New Colossus an 87 out of 100. And oh crap, what did I just do? Oh, okay. You're messing with me. Okay. I'm going to give Wolfenstein 2 an 87 out of 100. And the reason why is because Wolfenstein 2 is still a fundamentally good game. I just feel that there's a couple of things that could be added on between the story and the gameplay. And while it is fun and it is definitely worth replaying like the original, it ultimately just kind of falls short in a few key aspects, in my opinion. So that's really it. I find that the characters and the stories are interesting, but could be done a little bit better in certain areas. The gameplay is still just as fun. It's fast-paced, charging around. You feel powerful, but you're also not like a god, unless you play on baby mode, of course. And yeah, that's it. I will see you next time on The Verdict. I'm SpraynPray1000, signing out.